The morning sun poured through the kitchen window as I sat across from my stepmom, Elena. She smiled warmly while pouring chamomile tea into my favorite blue mug. Steam rose between us like a curtain I couldn't see through. I lifted the cup to my lips and drank deeply. The taste was slightly bitter, but I blamed it on the honey she'd added. Within minutes, the room started spinning. The walls tilted sideways. Elena's face blurred in and out of focus. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. My body felt heavy, like I was sinking into quicksand. Through the haze, I saw her expression change. The concern on her face looked fake now, painted on. Her eyes held something else entirely. Satisfaction. That's when it hit me. This wasn't the first time I'd felt this way. For months, I'd been getting dizzy after breakfast. I'd blamed stress from school, lack of sleep, anything but the truth staring me in the face. My vision darkened at the edges. I reached for the table but missed. Everything went black before I hit the floor. I woke up in a hospital bed with fluorescent lights burning my eyes. A nurse adjusted my fore while a doctor flipped through papers on a clipboard. My dad sat in the corner, his face pale and worried. Elena stood beside him, her hand on his shoulder, playing the perfect concerned stepmother. The doctor cleared his throat. Your blood work showed traces of ethylene glycol. It's commonly found in antifreeze and some cleaning products. He paused, studying my face. Accidental ingestion is possible, but... He looked at Elena, then back at me. The skepticism in his eyes was clear. Elena gasped dramatically. Oh my goodness! It must have been the vitamins. I mixed up the bottles this morning. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Her voice dripped with fake remorse. But I noticed her hand shaking when she signed the discharge papers. My dad believed her instantly. He always did. After my mom died 3 years ago, he'd remarried Elena within a year. I'd never trusted her, but I had no proof. Until now. Back home, I locked myself in my bedroom. My hands still trembled as I pulled out my laptop. I'd ordered a home test kit online months ago, back when I first started suspecting something was wrong. It had arrived in discreet packaging, hidden under my bed. I retrieved the tea sample I'd secretly taken from the hospital. Elena had brought me a fresh cup, insisting it would help me feel better. I'd poured half of it into a small bottle when she wasn't looking. Following the kit's instructions, I added drops of the testing solution to the tea. The liquid turned dark blue within seconds. My stomach dropped. The test confirmed contamination. Someone had deliberately put poison in my drink. My bedroom door rattled. Honey! Elena's voice came through, sugar-sweet and terrifying. I brought you some homemade soup. You need to eat something. Footsteps approached. I shoved everything under my mattress, heart pounding so hard I thought she'd hear it through the door. Elena entered with a steaming bowl of chicken soup. The smell made my stomach turn, not from hunger but from fear. She set it on my desk and smiled. Eat up, sweetie. You'll feel better soon. I forced a smile and picked up the spoon. She watched me take the first bite, then finally left. The moment her footsteps faded down the hallway, I grabbed the bowl and poured the entire contents into the potted plant on my windowsill. The thick liquid soaked into the soil. That night, I barely slept. Every creak in the house made me jump. Every shadow seemed threatening. By morning, I rushed to check the plant. My breath caught in my throat. The leaves had turned brown and crispy, scorched from the inside out. Some had fallen completely, leaving bare stems behind. I took photos with shaking hands. This was proof, undeniable proof that she was poisoning me. Dad knocked on my door. Ready for breakfast? His cheerful voice made me want to scream. When I came downstairs, he was beaming. Your stepmom's been taking such good care of you. We're lucky to have her. Saturday afternoon, Dad asked me to clean the attic. I climbed the narrow stairs, dust floating in the sunlight streaming through the small window. Cardboard boxes were stacked everywhere, labeled with old markers. Most contained Dad's college textbooks and old tax records. Then I saw it. A box in the far corner, separate from the others. Written in faded blue marker was my mother's name, Sarah's personal items. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were her journals, photo albums, and letters. I pulled out the leather-bound diary she'd kept for years. The pages smelled like her perfume, faint but still there. I flipped to the end, reading her last entries from 3 years ago. The words made my blood run cold. James is pulling away. Someone is whispering poison in his ear. I feel like I'm losing him, losing everything. I don't know who to trust anymore. The handwriting became messier with each entry, more desperate. The final entry was dated exactly 1 week before she died. Then nothing. Just blank pages stretching forward into a future she never got to see. I kept reading, flipping back through earlier entries. That's when a photograph slipped from between the pages and landed on the dusty floor. I picked it up, and my world tilted. The photo showed Dad and Elena together at some outdoor cafe. They were laughing, his arm around her shoulders. She looked younger, happier. They looked like a couple. I flipped the photo over. Someone had written a date on the back in pencil. 2 months before Mom died. My mother was still alive when this photo was taken. Dad had been having an affair with Elena while married to Mom. Everything I'd believed about their relationship was a lie. He hadn't met Elena after Mom's death. She'd been there all along, waiting. The attic door creaked open behind me. I spun around. Elena stood in the doorway, backlit by the hallway light. Her expression was unreadable. "What are you doing up here?" Her voice was quiet, but something dangerous lurked beneath the sweetness. I quickly slid the photo up my sleeve before standing. "Just cleaning like Dad asked." My voice came out steadier than I felt. Elena stepped closer, her eyes scanning the open box, the diary in my hands. "Some things are better left buried," she said softly. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Your mother had a lot of ideas. Not all of them were true." The temperature in the attic seemed to drop. "Come on down. Dinner's ready." She turned and descended the stairs, but the threat hung in the air like smoke. I clutched the photo hidden in my sleeve, my heart hammering against my ribs. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. Around 2 in the morning, I heard my bedroom door creak open. I kept my eyes closed, pretending to sleep. Footsteps approached my bed, then stopped. Someone stood there, breathing quietly, watching me. After what felt like hours, the footsteps retreated. The door closed with a soft click. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling until dawn, terrified to move. The next day, while Dad and Elena were at the grocery store, I installed a hidden camera. I'd ordered it online using money from my part-time job at the library. The camera was disguised as a smoke detector, small, inconspicuous, perfect. I mounted it on my ceiling, angled to capture my entire room. The app on my phone showed a live feed. Everything was working perfectly. I just needed her to make one mistake, give me one piece of evidence I could show Dad. The next morning, I left for school earlier than usual. During lunch period, I checked the camera footage on my phone in the bathroom. My hands started shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. The footage showed Elena entering my room at 7:15 that morning. She looked around carefully, then pulled something from her pocket. A syringe. She approached my water bottle on the nightstand and injected clear liquid into it. Then she paused, staring directly at where I would have been sleeping. She whispered something. I turned up the volume, pressing the phone close to my ear. Her words made my blood freeze. "Just a little more and he'll finally be mine." I skipped my afternoon classes and drove straight home. Dad's car was in the driveway. Perfect. I burst through the front door, phone in hand. Dad, you need to see this right now. He was in his study, Elena beside him reviewing bills. They both looked up, surprised. What's wrong? Dad asked. I showed him the footage. Watch. Just watch. My hands shook as I pressed play. Dad stared at the screen for 5 seconds, then looked away. This is ridiculous. You've been paranoid since your mother died. He wouldn't even finish watching it. Elena would never. But Dad, look at the video. She's poisoning me. My voice cracked with desperation. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Real tears, somehow. I can't believe you'd accuse me of something so horrible. I've tried so hard to be a good stepmother. She sobbed into Dad's shoulder. He glared at me like I was a stranger. Apologize. Now. I couldn't speak. That night, when I checked my phone, the camera app showed an error message. I ran upstairs. The smoke detector was gone, ripped from the ceiling, leaving exposed wires. I still had the tea sample. I packaged it carefully in a padded envelope and sent it to an independent laboratory 3 towns over. I used a fake name, Marcus Rivera, and paid extra for rush testing and confidential results. 3 days later, the lab called. A nervous-sounding technician spoke quickly. Mr. Rivera, your sample tested positive for ethylene glycol in dangerous concentrations. This could be fatal with repeated exposure. I'm legally required to report. Wait, I interrupted. What's wrong? He lowered his voice. Someone came here an hour ago asking about test number 447, your sample. A woman. She seemed angry when I said I couldn't release information. How did she even know you'd sent something here? My throat went dry. What did you tell her? Nothing. But she knew your fake name. She knew the test number. He paused. Be careful, kid. Something's not right. He hung up. I stared at my phone, fear crawling up my spine. How had Elena found out? The next afternoon, I walked home from school instead of taking the bus. I needed time to think, to plan my next move. The autumn air was cold, leaves crunching under my feet. A black sedan crawled alongside me. The passenger window lowered. A man with a scarred face leaned out, Elena's brother, Marcus. I'd met him once at a family dinner. He'd been released from prison 6 months ago for assault. Stop digging into things that don't concern you, he said, his voice flat and threatening. Or people get hurt. Understand? Before I could respond, he tossed something onto the sidewalk and drove away. I picked it up with trembling fingers. A folded piece of paper with one word written in red ink, next. I ran the rest of the way home, constantly looking over my shoulder. When I finally locked my bedroom door behind me, I collapsed against it, breathing hard. Elena had people helping her. This was bigger than I'd thought. That night, a memory surfaced, something I'd forgotten from my hospital stay. I'd been drifting in and out of consciousness when I heard Elena's voice in the hallway outside my room. He'll never remember, she'd whispered to someone. At the time, I'd thought she meant I wouldn't remember how I got to the hospital. But now the words echoed differently in my mind. She wasn't talking about an accident. She was talking about covering something up. About making sure I'd never piece together what she'd been doing to me. I opened my laptop, determination replacing fear. Elena wasn't as careful as she thought. I'd watched her type her email password once. She'd used Dad's birthday. It took 3 tries, but I got in. My eyes widened as I scrolled through her inbox. Hundreds of emails between her and someone named D. Morrison. I clicked on the first thread and started reading. With each message, the picture became clearer and more horrifying. The emails went back years, starting 6 months before my mother died. They discussed doses, timing, and insurance payouts. One message made me physically sick. The girl is getting suspicious. We need to increase the treatment. Make her weak enough that she needs constant care. That way, James will be even more dependent on me. D. Morrison had replied, "Be careful. The hospital ran tests last time. We can't afford another close call." I scrolled to the most recent messages. They discussed my collapse, my hospital stay, covering tracks. Then I found Morrison's real identity, Daniel Morrison, Dad's accountant. The man who'd handled Mom's estate and Dad's finances for a decade. I took screenshots of everything, backing them up to 3 different cloud accounts. Then I found Elena's calendar. Tomorrow she had a meeting scheduled, D. Morrison, final payment, Riverside Cafe, 2 p.m. I checked the sender's business address. It was across town, in a professional building I could easily get to after school. I dug deeper into Dad's financial records that Elena had carelessly left in her email. What I found made everything click into place. After Mom died, Dad's life insurance policy had been changed. Elena was listed as the sole beneficiary, $2 million. But there was more. My inheritance from Mom's estate had been quietly frozen in a trust until I turned 25. If I died before then, the money would revert to Dad, and by extension to Elena as his wife. I was worth more dead than alive. The next morning, Dad called me into the kitchen. "We're canceling your debit card," he said, not meeting my eyes. "For safety reasons. Elena thinks you've been acting erratic. We'll give you cash for necessities." Elena stood behind him, her hand on his shoulder, a small smile playing at her lips. She was cutting off my resources, isolating me. "But Dad, I need that card for—" "This isn't a discussion," he said firmly. His eyes looked tired, defeated. She'd wrapped him so completely around her finger that he couldn't see the truth anymore. I called Daniel Morrison from a payphone outside school. My hands shook as I dialed the number from Elena's emails. "Morrison Financial," a professional voice answered. "I know what you and Elena Porter have been doing," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I have the emails. All of them." Silence. Then heavy breathing. "Who is this?" "The person you've been poisoning. I have proof. And I'm going to the police." "You don't understand what you're—" He stopped abruptly. "This conversation never happened." The line went dead. That evening, the news reported a single-car accident on Highway 47. Daniel Morrison, 43, had lost control of his vehicle and crashed into a ravine. No witnesses. No survivors. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Told you to stop digging." I sat on my bedroom floor, hugging my knees to my chest. They'd killed him. Elena and whoever she was working with had actually killed him to keep him quiet. And I was next. I needed help, but I didn't know who to trust. Then I remembered Mrs. Chen, a nurse who'd been my mom's best friend. She still worked at County General Hospital where Mom had died. I found her during her lunch break in the hospital cafeteria. When I told her everything, her face went pale. "I need to show you something," she whispered. She led me to a basement records room and pulled out a thick file. "Your mother's death certificate says heart failure. But I was there that night." The original notes mentioned chemical traces in her blood work. When I came in the next day, those notes had been removed. The file had been altered. I stared at the documents, my vision blurring. "Elena killed my mom?" Mrs. Chen nodded slowly. "I could never prove it. But yes, I think so." She gripped my hand. "Be very careful. If she did this to your mother." The next day, Mrs. Chen didn't show up for her shift. Her apartment was empty. Her phone went straight to voicemail. She'd vanished without a trace. A young detective knocked on our door 3 days later. He was maybe 30, with sharp eyes and a kind face. "I'm Detective Williams. I'm investigating the death of Daniel Morrison." Dad invited him in. Elena offered coffee, playing the gracious hostess. Detective Williams declined. His eyes stayed on me. "I believe Mr. Morrison's death is connected to a larger pattern of suspicious deaths and poisonings, all linked to insurance fraud." My heart raced. This was my chance. "I'd like to ask your family some questions," he continued. "Separately, if that's all right." When it was my turn, he led me to the porch. "I know what's happening to you," he said quietly. "Don't let her know we're onto her. Can you do that?" I nodded, hope flooding through me for the first time in weeks. "What do I do?" "Act normal. We're building a case. One more piece of evidence and we can arrest her." He handed me his card. "Call me if anything changes." That evening, Elena surprised me with an announcement. "How about a mother-daughter weekend trip? Just us. We can finally bond properly." Her smile was warm, but her eyes were cold. We drove 3 hours to a remote cabin near Lake Morgan. The isolation made my skin crawl. No neighbors. No cell service. Just dense forest and a single dirt road leading in and out. Inside, the cabin was rustic. Wooden floors, stone fireplace, basic furniture. Elena hummed while unpacking groceries. "This will be good for us," she said cheerfully. I noticed only one coffee mug on the kitchen table. Another mug lay shattered in the trash can. My stomach twisted. "Why don't you rest?" Elena suggested. "You look weak again. I'll make us dinner." She disappeared into the kitchen. I pretended to lie down in the bedroom but kept my door cracked open. Through the gap, I watched her pull a small vial from her purse. She poured liquid from it into a glass of juice, stirring carefully. My phone, tucked in my pocket, was recording everything. The angle wasn't perfect, but it captured enough. Elena brought me the juice with a concerned smile. "Drink this. It'll help your energy." I took the glass, pretending to sip while secretly recording her face. She sat across from me, watching intently. Then she started talking, her voice distant, almost dreamlike. "You were never supposed to suffer this long," she murmured. "He was supposed to love me. Just me. But he kept photos of your mother. Kept talking about her. Even after I—" She trailed off, staring into space. "After you what?" I prompted, my phone still recording. "After I fixed the problem," she said simply. "Your mother was in the way. Then you became the problem. Too many reminders of her. Too much of his attention and money going to you instead of me." My hand shook, but I kept the phone steady. Every word was being captured. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a text that broke through even without service. An emergency alert. "Detective Williams, we lost her GPS signal. Get out of there now." Elena's eyes snapped to my phone. Her expression changed in an instant. I ran for the door, but Elena was faster. She grabbed my arm with surprising strength. "You recorded that, didn't you?" Her voice was no longer sweet. It was pure venom. I wrenched free and sprinted to my car. The keys were in my pocket, thank God. But before I could reach it, Elena grabbed a gas can from the porch. "If I can't have him, no one can," she screamed. "And you ruined everything." She splashed gasoline across the cabin's front porch and threw a lit match. Flames erupted instantly, spreading faster than I'd imagined possible. The dry wood ignited like kindling. I held up my phone, still recording. "It's over, Elena. The police are coming. I have everything on video." She spun around, seeing the phone, seeing the red recording light. Her face crumpled. No. No, no, no. She fell to her knees as sirens wailed in the distance. I ran to the road as fire trucks and police cars came racing up the dirt path. Detective Williams jumped out first, running past Elena to me. Are you hurt? I shook my head, unable to speak. Behind us, firefighters worked to control the blaze. Elena was being handcuffed, still screaming. He'll never love you again. You destroyed everything. It should have been me. Dad's car pulled up moments later. He jumped out, his face white with shock. What's happening? I showed him my phone, the recording of Elena's confession, her admission of poisoning me and killing Mom. He watched it twice, his hands shaking. When he looked at Elena being loaded into the police car, something in his expression broke. I'm so sorry, he whispered to me. I should have believed you. I should have protected you. But the words felt hollow. Too little, too late. My legs gave out. The world spun, and I collapsed into Detective Williams' arms. The last thing I remembered was the smell of smoke and the sound of my dad crying. I woke up in County General Hospital again. The same fluorescent lights. The same sterile smell. But this time felt different. Detective Williams sat in the chair beside my bed, a thick folder in his lap. You're going to be okay, he said gently. The doctors are treating you for chronic poisoning. It'll take time, but you'll recover. He opened the folder and showed me documents. We've been investigating Elena for 2 years. She's done this before. Married wealthy men, slowly poisoned their children from previous marriages, collected insurance money. You're the first one who fought back. My throat tightened. What about my mom? His expression grew somber. We exhumed your mother's body. The tests confirmed high levels of antifreeze in her tissue. Elena tampered with her medication over months. It was never heart failure. He showed me hospital records, pharmacy logs, financial transfers, everything proving Elena had systematically murdered my mother and tried to do the same to me. She's requesting a visit, Detective Williams said quietly. From her cell. You don't have to go. But I did. I needed to look her in the eye one final time. The county jail visiting room was gray and cold. Elena sat behind thick glass, wearing an orange jumpsuit. She looked older somehow, deflated. The mask of sweetness had completely crumbled. I picked up the phone. She did the same. I wanted to be loved, she said, her voice hollow. Your father was so devoted to your mother, even after she was gone. I thought if you disappeared, I'd finally matter. I'd finally be enough. I said nothing, just stared at her. I gave him everything, she continued. But it was never enough. He kept your mother's photos. Kept talking about you. I was invisible, even when I was the only one left. I pulled out a photo of my mom and pressed it against the glass. She mattered more than you ever understood. She was kind. Real. You were just a shadow trying to steal someone else's light. Elena's face crumpled. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. But sorry couldn't bring back my mother. Sorry couldn't give me back 3 years of fear and pain. I hung up the phone and walked away without looking back. 2 weeks later, Detective Williams came to my hospital room with news. Elena had been found unresponsive in her cell. She'd taken her own life using pills she'd somehow obtained. She left behind a sealed envelope addressed to me. Inside was a handwritten confession, everything she'd done, everyone she'd hurt, every lie she'd told. It was detailed and damning. At the bottom was a check for $847,000, every cent she'd stolen from my inheritance and my mother's estate. The final line of her letter read, I'm sorry. Tell your mother I tried to be like her. But I was never good enough. I folded the letter and placed it in my mother's diary, next to the photo that had started everything. Elena had tried to erase my mother's memory, but instead, she'd only made it stronger. Dad visited every day, broken and guilty. We barely spoke. The trust between us had shattered like that coffee mug at the cabin. 1 year later, I stood in my mother's garden, the one I'd replanted behind our house. Roses, her favorite, bloomed in red and white clusters. The autumn air was crisp and clean. I brewed a cup of chamomile tea, making it myself in the kitchen that once terrified me. Steam rose from the mug as I carried it outside. I sat on the wooden bench Dad had built for Mom's birthday years ago. I survived what was meant to kill me, I whispered to the roses, to the memory of my mother in every petal and leaf. I poured a second cup and placed it beside the small stone marker I'd set in the garden. It bore Mom's name and the words, "Truth always survives." The tea cooled in the afternoon sun while I sat in silence, finally at peace. Elena had tried to poison my life, my family, my future. She tried to erase everything my mother built. But in the end, I was the antidote. I was the truth that couldn't be buried. And I had survived. Please click on the subscribe button to stay updated on more stories like this.